Hey friends, we're back with another Truth About episode. And today I have my sister again with us, Aria, and she's going to be talking about mental health. So I do want to give a little bit of a trigger warning. There will be some sensitive content and, you know, truthful discussion about mental health. So I just want you to be aware of that before she gets too much into it. And so I'll give her the mic and let her go.
Thank you for having me back. Um, like Carissa said, I'm going to be talking about mental health. And honestly, I felt really confident talking at first. And then, I don't know, I told her to say the trigger warning, but then whenever she actually said it, it brought back a lot of feelings as to why she would have to give that warning. I was brought up basically learning how to hate myself. Um, Before anything was ever done to me or said to me, it was always projected in front of me to learn how to hate myself. I had a mom who was very self-critical of her image and how she appeared to other people and keeping up face to the people around her. And then I had a dad who worked very hard, extremely hard to keep his family afloat and still spoke of himself so poorly because he felt like such a failure in his own perspective. And growing up in that environment, that's just kind of like what you fed, like what you're fed. And that eventually becomes a crop in your own mind. And um, growing up Pentecostal, apostolic in a small town, not a lot of money. We literally grew up in a house that we called the Halloween house. It was a shingle house. It was covered in shingles. It was literally the scariest looking house that you could ever see. And trying to go to school, and then I was overweight and getting bullied by people there, and just being surrounded with thoughts of just not being enough and just trying to find a way to fit in. I also have always been very outspoken and not afraid to say whatever's on my mind, and sometimes at the expense of you don't fit in with people sometimes whenever you do that. And um then later on, my mom and dad got a divorce, and that was just really hard because divorce. But then also we stopped going to church, and everything that I'd ever been brought up to know as truth was all of a sudden a giant lie to me. Um, I was brought up to think that, divorce was gonna send people to hell and, wondering if God loved me so much, why would he let my life look the way that it did? And so I just kind of internalized everything as just like one big not good enough. And then you go through high school and everything, and that's just a rat race anyways, trying to fit in, you're surviving anyways. And then I left high school and I just remember like I felt so lost. I was just like aimlessly wandering around the world, wondering where I fit in, wondering why it's not good enough for people, to the point where I just didn't want to be here at all anymore. And it got really hard. Um, and that went on for a lot of years too. I went on and after high school I got into a relationship and we're good. We're good now, we're married, but there was a lot that went on with that. And then I had my son and I dealt with postpartum depression. And again, just I love my baby. I was obsessed with my baby, but I always felt just inadequate, just not good enough to be his mom. Um, our living situation at the time just made me feel like a failure. And I was just so lost. Um, we eventually ended up moving and I went back to a doctor and I was going to church at this time, but I was still really struggling. And so I went to the doctor and I got back on mental health medication. And this is, I just want to preface this by saying this is not me saying what anybody needs to do as far as medication goes. This is just what happened for me. Um, but we had moved and I went to the doctor and I was going back to church and stuff. And um it became known to me that we had started talking at the doctor's office. I had been being seen since the age of 8 years old for my mental health. And that was just so sad to me because my son was 5 at the time. And I was like, I can't imagine him feeling the way that I felt at that age. And so I started really leaning into God because I at that point I couldn't change for myself. I wanted to change for my son. And so that was my intention, was just I wanted to get better for him. And I was at church one day and I'll never forget that I was praying. It was just so heavy and it was a real encounter with God. I felt like the inside of my body had the warmest hug, and God really spoke to me and said that nobody can love you like I can. And something shifted that day. And so I started reading my Bible and I got into my Bible every single day and just read his truth about me. And the first one that stuck out to me was 2 Timothy 1:7, which is, "For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." And I realized that whenever people talk about the power of your tongue, it doesn't always start with what comes out of your mouth, because there's a mind and heart correlation that happens. There's a relationship that happens inside of your mind that then gets embedded in your heart. And by the time it ever comes out of your mouth, it's like the most deep rooted truth that you believe. And it's so hard to fight it. So by the time that I was ever saying that I hated myself and I didn't want to be here anymore, that was something that was just already instilled in in my mind. And I had to start changing that. And so I was reading my Bible and I was reading the truth that God had about me. And whenever it said that I had power, that I had power of love, and that I had power of a sound mind, that was something that I wanted to take ownership of. There's also another verse, and it's 1 John 4:18. And it says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. That he who fears has not been made perfect in love." So I had to let God start loving me. And I had to realize that my own thoughts were blocking God's love for me. And so every day I was making myself get up and fill myself up with his promises. I was the daughter of a king, that he has so many thoughts towards me, that he would never leave me and he would never forsake me. And that if he loves me more than my earthly father can love me, then that's a love that's greater than anything that I could ever ask for. And so, about a year later, I was completely off of mental health medication. And I haven't been back on them since. And I'm happy today. I'm so filled with joy. I have a life that I love. And I'm surrounded by people that I love and that I know love me back. And that even if I didn't have anybody, the fact that I had God became everything that I needed and everything that I wanted. And because I didn't let the devil steal my life from me, I'm able to go out and talk to the people that I love and that I care about, that I don't want to see struggle in the same way, and I get to talk to them and they get to see how my life has changed because of it. And so if you're struggling to wonder if you're loved or if you're accepted or if you're wanted, I really encourage you to get into the word and to see just how much you are.
That was so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. I something you said there at the end about your father loving you, it really caught me because I had heard a little thing on the radio earlier that said, God is not a reflection of our earthly father, he's a perfection of our earthly father. And how comforting is that? Because even if you had the world's greatest dad, you don't want him to be God. God is so much better and so much more everything, so much more loving, so much more kind, so much more supportive. And encouraging and endearing than we could ever even fathom. And so I hope you rest in that and know that we will be praying for you and that we love you. Stay blessed.